open letter to the German people, believers in the Bible, and lovers of Christ. Thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses have been most cruelly persecuted, maltreated, and locked up in prisons and concentration camps. Despite the severest emotional pressures, and despite 4 years of sadistic maltreatment, the Jehovah's Witnesses could not be wiped out because they refused to be intimidated. Instead, they continued to obey God rather than men, just as Christ's apostles did when they were forbidden to preach the gospel.
One of the Jehovah's Witnesses who distributed these leaflets at great personal risk in the summer of 1937 was the domestic servant Erna Ludolf.
Und dann sehe ich mit einem Mal auf der Straße 2 Männer stehen, mit Rädern. Und das schoss mir durch.
Suddenly, I saw 2 men with bicycles standing in the street, and it hit me. They're waiting for you. I was unable to go on to another house. At first, I thought of just riding off in the opposite direction. No, better not flee. It won't do any good. They'll get the better of you. Then I thought, just keep going and face the facts. I had to get off my bicycle, and since I was still carrying leaflets with me, they asked me where I was going to take them and where I'd already been. I learnt then that the pastor had seen me by chance and had denounced me.
Ja, der Pastor hat Meldung gemacht. Und ich wusste dann, dass es der Pastor war, der mich dann unglücklicherweise gesehen hat.
Erna Ludolf is arrested, interrogated, and taken away by officers of the Gestapo.
Und dann habe ich im Wagen gesessen und dann erzählten sie.
Sitting in the car, they mentioned that the leaflet campaign had been carried through in a flash all over Germany. I secretly rejoiced at the thought that it had worked out.
In fact, on June the 20th, 1937, Jehovah's Witnesses succeeded in distributing 20,000 copies of the open letter all over the German Reich. It exposed the persecution methods employed by the Gestapo and sharply criticized the conditions in the prisons and concentration camps. In 1933, shortly after Hitler's regime had assumed power, the German branch of the International Bible Students Association had already been declared part of a Bolshevist Jewish world conspiracy and had been prohibited. The headquarters and printing facilities in Magdeburg were occupied by the police and the SA, the political militia of the Nazi Party, and all printed matter was burnt on the outskirts of town. The Gestapo were given orders to put more pressure on the approximately 25,000 members of the religious association. The house of the respectable Kusserow family in Bad Lippspringe was searched by the Gestapo 18 times altogether. Paul Gerhard was 5 years old then.
Das haben wir leider öfter erlebt, die Hausdurchsuchungen.
I'm afraid we saw quite a few house searches.
Wurden uns
The latest watchtowers were slipped into our, the children's, hands, and we knew where to hide them.
Und wir wussten schon Bescheid.
That's how I remember my childhood, even before I went to school.
Schon bevor ich in die Schule kam.
What the Gestapo were looking for were publications like The Watchtower and The Golden Age, in which Jehovah was worshipped as the ruler of the world, instead of men like Hitler. Jehovah's Witnesses' understanding of the Bible forbids paying undue honor to men, forbids military service, participation in political elections, and the worship of national symbols. Magdalena Kusserow remembers.
Ja, mein Vater bekam ja immer die Pension.
One day my father went to the post office to get his pension. He'd been a postal clerk. But because he said good morning in reply to the Nazi salute Heil Hitler, he was told, "We can't give you any money. If you come back tomorrow and say Heil Hitler, you'll get your pension."
Und wenn sie morgen wiederkommen, sagen Heil Hitler, dann holen sie ihre Pension ab.
Franz Kusserow witnessed the horrors of World War I as a soldier. Repelled by the predominant religions which supported the war, he discovered the Jehovah's Witnesses, whose fidelity to the Bible impressed him. The Kusero parents brought their children up in this spirit.
Wir sind von den Eltern gut belehrt worden. Aufgrund
We were